Good evening. It's a Saturday night off ice, as I like to say. It's Saturday, June 29th, 2019. This is Teal Tinted Glasses. I'm Kevin Lacey. Joining me, or really, I'm joining Mr. Ian Reed this evening, and we're going to discuss the Sharks development camp this week. Of course, free agency is about 36 hours away from beginning, and there are some interesting rumblings around the Sharks already happening, and we have a trade to announce. That's what we're going to lead off with tonight. But Ian, how are you doing, sir?
I'm fantastic. I type really heavy, so I was trying to tweet out that we're starting finally. Apologies for the late start. YouTube's kind of Hangouts on Air. I'm going to start with this just quickly. Hangouts on Air has kind of been a real pain in the butt lately, and it's actually going to cease to exist on August 1st. So we're going to have to, figure out something to replace it with, basically, to keep going. So I just learned that August 1st is the drop dead date, and I'm very panicky right now. But
all you need to know, folks, all you need to know is follow at Teal Tinted Pod on Twitter.
Right.
And you will know where we will be this summer podcasting live to you.
Right.
We will, of course, still, I believe there are plenty of options that will allow us to still stream through YouTube. It's just going to be a little bit of a different process. And honestly, it's going to be better for us. But so we're trading away Google Hangouts.
Yes.
And good riddance. And instead, we also have the Pittsburgh Penguins trading Phil Kessel to the Arizona Coyotes about an hour ago. Wow.
Yeah, I did not see this one coming. Well, maybe I saw it coming. I didn't expect the return to be what it was. For those that are just catching up, the trade is Kessel, Dane Burks, and a fourth for going to the Arizona Coyotes for Pierre-Olivier for Joseph and Alex Galchenyuk for the Penguins. And
you're terrible, Ian. You let Bettman do this.
No, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
We have a trade to announce. The Pittsburgh Penguins trade Phil Kessel to the Arizona Coyotes, soon to be Houston someday, some never time, because they're still down in Arizona. I don't know why. Along with Dane Burks, who's an ECHL defenseman you've never heard of, and a fourth-round pick, year to be decided, for Pierre-Olivier Joseph and Alex Galchenyuk. Ian, did you expect Pittsburgh to get I view it as a great return for Pittsburgh. Did you expect them to get this kind of return for Kessel, given his cap hit and the financial, not financial woes of Pittsburgh, but just the cap stress that all these big money players have put on them?
Yeah, I didn't expect this. I mean, when you saw, we saw what happened with PK Subban. PK Subban traded for some pizzas and beer, as I said last time on this very show. So I think if you think Kessel's going to go, I mean, Arizona makes a lot of sense as a landing spot, but no, I didn't expect Galchenyuk to go the other way. And it's interesting because, the reaction on Twitter has been really mixed. A lot of Penguins people not so happy with the return.
What a shocker. When is anyone ever happy about a star player being traded?
No, and that's fair.
How great the return is.
No, and that's fair. It's interesting though, because I don't know who's going to play center on that team. The Coyotes.
Okay.
I don't know who's going to play center. You've traded Dylan Strome. Now you've traded Alex Galchenyuk. Who's playing center on that team? That's my question. At a glance, I haven't really done any, heavy digging.
Yeah,
but
we had very little time to prepare for that. But
yeah,
they do have a couple of options that they could move to center. Like Nick Schmaltz can play center, Vinny Hinostroza can play center. But you're looking at Derek Stepan, who's probably at this point a second line center, a very solid second line center. But then you're looking just further down the depth chart. Is Christian Dvorak ever going to step up and get into the top 9? And you're still looking at a team that needs a top line center. For me, Ian, I think it was on last year's show. I know I've said it before, but I think I've said it about a year ago that I don't understand why the Coyotes continue to trade for cap, like acquire other teams' financial problems, and just get like Marian Hossa and Pavel Datsyuk and Chris. Like I've been saying for a long time, use the cap that you have. Sign someone to a ludicrous contract just to make your team better. So for me, it's like finally, the Coyotes finally decide to trade for an expensive player. Again, trade, not sign, but still, they finally get a talented player in return that they can actually use with their cap space. I mean, the rumblings about Phil Kessel, is he as good now as he was a couple of years ago? I don't know. I mean, but I think the fresh start in Arizona will do great things for him. So,
oh, absolutely. And I think even for the Penguins, I mean, you got to like this trade for the Penguins. I think you could easily, Galchenyuk doesn't have to play center in Pittsburgh. He can play on Malkin's wing, and I think that'll be just, I think that'll work just fine for them. Because they have that flexibility.
And I mean, the wing, the left side especially, is something that I think Pittsburgh really did need to shore up on. I mean, they have Jake Gensel, but they lost Connor Sheary. Jared McCann had a very nice year for them last year, but I mean, Jared McCann versus Alex Galchenyuk. I mean, come on. So
yeah.
So and then Pierre-Olivier Joseph was a former first-round pick, if I'm not mistaken, and for a team or for an organization like Pittsburgh, who was kind of lacking in high-end prospect defensemen, I think that's another win there. They moved out Ole Mata, and Joseph can easily fill that role as early as next year, in my opinion.
Yeah, and if Arizona, I mean, Arizona's had trouble developing their own players for the number of prospects that they've drafted. They've had a really difficult time developing, and I think that whenever, I guess, I mean, it's hard to fix things when seems like it's a new ownership group every year and a half. They have a new ownership group come in.
Yeah.
Maybe with this new owner, they can finally find some stability. I know that's like quotes from 2009, but you know what I mean? Like the team needs some stability. I mean, that team needs to, because I think whatever is going on in their development, I mean, they've had so many guys not pan out that there's something wrong there. Like, there's just no way around it.
I looking at the chat right now, Alex Martinet saying that it's a bad trade for Pittsburgh. How do you figure? Pittsburgh couldn't do anything. They couldn't bring in anyone to improve that roster because they were saddled with such high contracts. They move out Phil Kessel, who was declining for their roster. They open up immense cap space because of it. They bring in a very good top six wing, and they get a top D pair potential defenseman. I don't know where this is a bad thing for Pittsburgh, Alex. Sorry, buddy, but no, I'm not aboard at all on that.
Because Jack Johnson wasn't in the trade, is I think where he was going with that.
Well, then they can just buy out Jack Johnson or trade him for a seventh. I'm sure when Florida fails in free agency yet again in a couple of days, they'll be in need of anybody. So just move him there.
Yeah. I mean, Jack Johnson, I mean, that contract is absolutely an albatross for sure. And I would I mean, I'm sure Penguins fans, I think that they're a lot on the same page, where it's like, Phil Kessel's gone, but Jack Johnson's still here. And I think that's been a common gripe that I've saw. So I mean, I get where Alex is coming from there for sure. But at the same time, it's like Arizona can't just eat all the garbage. I mean, they got to share with the rest of the league. This is a team like Arizona. I mean, this is a team that needs to do something. This is a team that needs to, how many years has this team missed the playoffs now? Like, this team needs to do something, and they're about with a few teams like that.
And Arizona's on the. I mean, they are on the rise. Finally on the rise. They came close to making the playoffs last year. Then they kind of bottomed out. I mean, the year before that, they bottomed out immediately and then got really good. They were the third best team in the league after the All-Star break 2 years ago and still missed the playoffs because it was that. But at least it's progress. And with bringing in I don't know if I'd say elite right wing, but a great right wing in Phil Kessel, that's enough to push them into the playoffs, especially if it's a year like this year where only 6 teams truly wanted to make the playoffs and then the Stars and Blues decided with 3 weeks to go. The playoffs might not be a bad idea. In a situation, if the same situation happened next year, Arizona's like, we're taking 7th because of Phil Kessel. So it's about time, Arizona.
Yeah, I mean, for Arizona, I mean, they get bored. I mean, I would still say like at one time an elite goal scorer. I don't know if he's still an elite goal scorer, but if he's not elite, he's really damn close still. And that's something that you need goals. Goals win games. So if they can obviously stay healthy, because this is one of the most injury ravaged teams last year, and I don't think that helped them out very much. But I don't know. I think it's a good trade for both parties. I think that I'm a little concerned of what they have with Galchenyuk gone. I don't. I think the West is one down the middle. I've said that many times, and I'm not sure. I mean, look, free agency is going to open, and they'll probably have to do something. But to me, that's the only concern I would have for the Coyotes. And for the Penguins, I think, again, you got a guy who is going to come in for less money that I think is going to be just fine playing with on Malkin's wing. How can you go wrong with that? I mean, they've got plenty of time to deal with Jack Johnson over the summer. It's not like they need to get this done today. As far as Jack Johnson goes, they have lots of time. There's another buyout window. There's all summer to trade him. I mean, they have time. There's no rush.
Yeah, definitely. So there was one more trade yesterday. Andre Burakovsky got traded to Colorado from Washington for a 2nd and 3rd round pick. I don't really have much to say other than puns. Do you got anything on this, Ian?
It's funny because it's one of these things, we always talk about GMs and like it's stupid because like you look at the GM of the year, which I think is the stupidest award in the entire league, because I think there was a time where Joe Sakic was honestly the butt end of every GM joke. Period.
Oh, for sure.
Right?
Absolutely.
And when he was the butt end and he kept doing what he was doing, he stayed the course. And now Colorado is set up to be one of the best teams in the West, period. And, so I think from that perspective, I think I don't know when this changed. Joe Sakic is suddenly, the overlord of the NHL. He is everything he touches turns to gold.
Well, I mean, I always thought that Joe Sakic and Steve Yzerman kind of were on the same exact level, same career trajectory when they were playing. Mm-hmm. Obviously Colorado and Detroit had the huge rivalry as well, so that probably helped that in my mind. But Joe Sakic has been seeing Steve Yzerman here for a number of years be just an incredible GM for Tampa Bay, and we'll see what he can do for Detroit. So maybe Joe Sakic decided it's time to step his GM game up to be on the same level now here post-career. Actually, a thought came to my mind here on this Burakovsky trade, since you talked about how strong Colorado is looking going into the future. Look at Arizona. We just talked about it. They got Phil Kessel because their draft picks haven't really panned out, and all they have done is rely on their drafting and just nothing else. And look at Colorado now. I think Joe Sakic recognized, okay, we're poised to do big things now. So what is another 2nd and 3rd round pick going to do for us? We're not planning for 5 years from now. I mean, Cup in 5 years probably, but they're planning to take a next step, and having a 2nd and a 3rd round pick that's not going to be ready for another 5 years is not going to help them this season.
Right. No.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a time to stockpile draft picks. I think you don't want to completely, kill yourself in the draft, because eventually you're going to need those players. Obviously, like we've seen what happened with a couple teams. Like I think Boston is on the verge here of being a similar thing where they just kind of hit a hiccup, where they're going to hit a hiccup because they just don't have anything in the pipeline, even though they're a good team right now. And eventually you have to try and balance that out. But for Colorado, I mean, right now, like you have Nathan McKinnon on the best contract in the NHL, period. I don't think there's an argument there. And you look at some of the players, like they're going to get Mikko Rantanen done. Let's be honest. You still have Landeskog. I mean, they've got guys on really good deals for, I think, 2 more years. Their window's now. Like your time to win is now.
Yeah. So I mean, and Andre Burakovsky, I mean, he's not going to tear the world apart, but when you look
a nice piece to add.
Huh?
That's a nice add, though.
It's a great piece to add, and it's a needed, like a necessary addition, because to me, I know we've talked a lot about who's going to play up the middle for Colorado, but I think their wings, the depth they have on wings is kind of lacking, at least at right wing. And so, because going into this season, you're looking at like Matt Calvert as your top line right wing, unless you shift McKinnon over to the right wing, then that's obviously a different story. But Burakovsky really helps balance out the rest of the lineup. It's kind of like Mark Stone. Mark Stone, Andre Burakovsky, completely different players. Mark Stone's amazing. Andre Burakovsky's all right. But bringing in this piece helps slide everything else where it should be.
Absolutely.
So, and then for my joke, Andre Burakovsky has been known to really like big peaks. If you catch my drift. So this is a great fit for him.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Anyway, now that I brought down the class of the show, let's go on to what I think most people want to hear about, which is the Sharks development camp this week and the scrimmage last night. Ian, you were able to watch online. I was there live, tweeting up a storm at Kevin Lacey 22. But I mean, what did you think online? Because I did try to rewatch it online, and I found it pretty hard actually to watch, hard to follow when you've got just plain white jerseys, plain teal jerseys, and what'd you think?
I mean, first, obviously, kudos to the Sharks for finally doing this and putting it on YouTube where everyone could see it. No geolock, no nothing. I hope that continues when we start getting into preseason games and whatnot at training camp.
Definitely.
I hope that is a trend that continues for the Sharks. So big ups for them for that. But yeah, I think it's hard because like I can look at, without being there, I mean, obviously I don't see much. I was grateful to see the prospect scrimmage, but obviously the prospect scrimmage, you're following the play. So a lot of the things that I would normally look at during a game, you couldn't, it was harder for me to watch. Like, so it's, for a couple of things, it's like, yeah, if a guy did something in the play, I saw it, but I didn't get a chance to obviously really watch things behind the play and just see kind of stuff that I would normally look for in a game like this. Because obviously it's a prospect scrimmage. The score is meaningless. You want to see guys develop, you want to see how they're skating, how they're moving, where they're going on the ice, their positioning and stuff. And obviously with an online only viewing, you kind of get robbed of that. But it was still, I still enjoyed it. And it was, it's hockey in June. Can't go wrong, really.
Yeah, definitely. I always have fun at these. I've been to every one of the 7 that the Sharks have done, and hope to continue to go to as many, as they have. It was a nice atmosphere here. I think last year's camp overall was more entertaining. Like the game itself was more entertaining. But the scrimmage last night, for example, I mean, there was a scrimmage on Wednesday too, which I would have loved to have been at, but I have a 9-to-5 job or 8-to-5 job, and I'm not credentialed, so so I couldn't be there. So I would have loved to compare the two, but what I always find interesting about the development camps is you do have to take them with a grain of salt because they're playing against other prospects as opposed to training camp in September, where you can really fairly assess, like at the development camp, you can assess, okay, what skills do these guys have? And then at training camp, it's how ready are they right now compared to NHL players? So either way, getting to watch them, players that you don't normally get to see, especially the college players like John Leonard, for example.
Right.
I mean, Mike Robinson had a stellar year in college, and I saw more of the same problems that we've talked about the last 2 years with him. So, it's one of those things where it's nice to see these players in the development camp so that you can really kind of, see where we're at,
Yeah, no, exactly. The other thing too with the prospect camp or the prospect scrimmage too is, I think some players you don't, like Team Teal really dominated most of that game. Like they had a ton more offensive time, and I think that obviously. So if you're trying to watch a guy on like the team that on the white team, for example, I think that was harder to do because they really, as a squad, really didn't have much, like anywhere near as much offensive time as the Teal team did, and I think that also makes it difficult to comment on things as well.
For sure.
Here we are.
And even looking at the roster, I was like, oh, okay, so they got Merkley and Shimolevsky and Chukovich and Keaton Middleton, and then all the other tryout guys. I like John Leonard, but then all the other tryout guys were all on the white team. And it was just like, okay, pretty much all of the AHL defensemen besides Keaton were all on Team Marchment, and they could break the puck out just fine. And, so.
Yeah, so I think where I was going with that is just like if a guy, if I don't have much to say about a guy, or he was on the white team, for example, I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing, and it shouldn't be an indictment on that prospect because it's a prospect scrimmage, right? So you don't want to read too much into the end result, but in this case, it's if, like, I think Chekovich had a hell of a game. I thought Chmelevsky did okay, but you really didn't really see anything because they were pretty much stymied the whole damn time. And I don't think that shouldn't be an indictment. Like, that's not me saying, oh, well, Chmelevsky's a terrible prospect suddenly. Like, I'm completely off the train because of one prospect scrimmage. Like, and I think my message here, I guess, is that, you don't want to be too overly critical of a guy based on this one scrimmage.
One view.
The message I'm trying to say.
Yeah. For me, with Chmelevsky, he didn't blow the doors off SAP Center last night. I didn't think he had to. The Sharks know what they're getting with this player. They've seen him carry the Barracuda into the playoffs 2 years ago, and then had an incredible year for Ottawa in the OHL last year. So they know what they're getting. I mean, like, Ryan Merkley's another one where he had some nice plays, but as the scrimmage went on, I saw Ryan Merkley kind of taking it less seriously as it went along. Yeah. But it's one of those things where you know what you're going to get. And me personally, I want to see the guys I haven't already seen. And I'm sure the Sharks do too. Like Mitch Brewer was a tryout guy who got more and more ice time as the game went on. And I thought he was really good for them. Like, I think he had a strong showing. He won't sign because he's 18 and he's North American. So he'd have to re-enter the draft. But I think a camp like what he had, or at least a scrimmage like what Mitch Brewer had, is got to be a huge confidence builder. So the Sharks could potentially draft him next year. They're looking at these other players versus the known projects. I mean, Zach Gallant, another player who had a good showing here, and he needed to because he just got let go by Detroit as a third-round pick. So the Sharks gave him an ample opportunity to prove himself. So,
Yeah. All right. So let's I guess we can start with Chmelevski since we kind of already hit there.
Sure.
What were your thoughts on Chmelevski? I'm like, for me, there was nothing outstanding, right? But that's kind of like that's Chmelevski in a nutshell for me. Like for me, Chmelevski is just one of the most complete players the Sharks have in their pipeline. There's nothing in his game that's overly amazing that's going to blow your socks off. It's just the poise and just the way he plays the game at such a mature level for his age. And I think I just saw more of the same of that. He, even though they were pretty much, they were having a hard time, obviously, dealing with Team Teal and their forecheck. He didn't really look he never looks frazzled. He just keeps playing his game. He doesn't let people throw him off his game. It was more of the same. And I really like that about him. I think his path to the NHL is going to be really short because of just the way he plays his game and the poise he plays his game with that and at such a young age.
Yeah, for sure, Ian. I mean, there were some moments of just pure brilliance when he was carrying the puck, and I liked his determination to try and make something happen.
Absolutely.
And in a scrimmage, especially a June scrimmage, I mean, you have to show off a little bit, just for the fans, and then also. Sure. Hey, maybe if something moves or actually works, because how we say plays that work in juniors and work in college don't work in the pro game. I definitely saw that with Ryan Merkley last night.
Yes, we'll get there.
And Scott Reedy had the same thing, I think, too. But with Chmelevski, he's got the skill, he's got the talent. I mean, it's not gonna, he doesn't have like Phil Kessel hands or anything like that, right? But he's solid in everything that he does, and so try a flashy move because hey, maybe it works. Maybe that builds his confidence going into the actual training camp to try more things, and maybe he could develop the flash. So I really like Sasha Chmelevski. His best shifts were when he was paired with Ivan Chekhovich, who I think was the best player last night. And I unfairly said Chmelevski carried the team into the playoffs. Really, the two of them carried the Barracuda in the playoffs 2 years ago. So I just like them as a package duo, obviously drafted together as well. Literally ranked side by side on future considerations, by the way. Who the other one was Scott Reedy next to those two. So that's right. It's funny how the Sharks got all three. But yeah, I think so highly of Chmelevski and of Chekhovich. So,
and I think that's a good segue because I thought Chekhovich is a guy who, I think Chekhovich kind of gets all the highlights because he kind of, he's the goal scorer, and this guy can score.
Yeah.
And I think that, it always kind of irks me when people are like, oh, well, Chmelevski's okay, but Chekhovich, that's the real deal. And I disagree, but at the same time, it's really getting hard to deny that this kid just scores. Like he just shows up and scores goals. Whether that goal scoring is going to translate to the NHL game, it seems to work just fine in the AHL game, although I'd like to see a full season in the AHL to see if he can be consistently a scorer in the AHL. But yeah, I mean, this kid can score goals, and I don't know if it's an NHL scoring level, but man, at the very worst, this guy is going to be a hell of an AHL goal scorer.
I still think it's awesome that Ivan Chekhovich scored on his first pro shot 2 years ago.
Right.
And then when he got reassigned to the Barracuda last year, he scored on his first shot of the season. So yeah, I mean, with Ivan Chekhovich, I think I give the edge to Chmelevski for sure. And it's all about consistency for me. I mean, I really think that Chmelevski just doesn't, he's good at everything that he does. He's not great, but right. Chekhovich has some great hands, great vision, and he can score. It's just a little inconsistent. And some people seem to think that he doesn't back check enough. I am yet to see that. Every time I see him hustling on the back check, he's right there lifting people's sticks, taking pucks. It happened again tonight. I know I tweeted about it last year too. Yep. So I think his defense is fine. But again, like you said, Ian, it's all about the 68 games in the AHL.
Yeah.
And we've had 2 solid small samples of it. And then, the camps and whatnot. But he's got a nice ceiling for sure.
He does. And I don't think that, and I think the floor, like, I mean, being a really, like, I'm not saying that should be the goal of any drafted prospect, but I mean, at worst, he's a great AHL goal scorer potentially. I mean, that's for him as a person. I think that's fantastic. I think that there's definitely NHL upside there. I just need to see that he can consistently do it at the AHL level, and then and how does that translate to the NHL? For me, I'm not full court. Like, this guy is definitely going to be an NHLer, and his road is really, really short. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think that with Chmelevski, he is absolutely going to be a top 9 NHL player, and he could probably slide around all over the lineup given his skill set. For Chekhovich to make it to the NHL, it's going to have to be a top 6 role. I mean, again, I just said, like, I don't see a problem with his defensive game, at least on his back checking. Maybe his positioning and whatnot, I don't know. I haven't seen enough of it to assess that. But as a scorer, he's going to have to crack the top 6 in order to make the NHL. So in the chat, 4Paws asked, who are the Teal goalies? Well, the goalies had a carousel last night. Yes. So Mike Robinson was in
the first half of the first, and then the second half he was in, I believe.
Yeah, it was like Mike Robinson played the first 8 minutes for Teal, and then the final half, Zach Sawchenko played the last 12 minutes of the first half, and then played the second half in white. And then Andrew Shortridge was the first half white goalie. So kind of weird there. No Zach Amond, which I was a little disappointed to not see. But again, I think it made sense because Mike Robinson, I believe, is going into his senior year into college. I think so. This is really their last opportunity to see him at a Sharks camp before they make a decision on whether they want to sign him. And then Andrew Shortridge and Zach Sawchenko will be battling for the backup role with the Barracuda most likely this next season, unless somehow Bebo and Coronash are back together, which I don't see. But so really, I think it made sense to see the 3 goal for the organization and the scouts to see the 3 goalies they got last night. So
which I guess goalies, it's a good place to start. I really liked Shortridge's game. Like, out of the goalies that played last night, I thought I just lost his name. I just said it.
Sawchenko?
Shortridge.
Okay.
I thought Shortridge was the better of the 3 last night.
For sure.
By significant margin. If it's Coronash and like the Sharks, in my opinion, this, and again, it's just a prospect scrimmage, but from what I saw last night, this should push them to make a decision on Aaron Dell, because there's no way you can put Shortridge in the ECHL. Like, this guy needs to be playing AHL games, in my opinion.
Yep. I'm with you on that, Ian. I've said before that I'm hesitant about NCAA stats. Andrew Shortridge had the best stats among all NCAA goalies last year, but we've seen it before where that means absolutely nothing. Even in his 1 game for the Barracuda last season. Now, again, granted,
1 game, it's
1 game, and
your first pro game.
He's coming. It's his first pro game. He's coming off playing in college. Yeah. When I wasn't that impressed, but again, 1 game, and then this is still again 1 game. Mm-hmm. But Andrew Shortridge, I said I'm curious to see who jumps up the most in my prospect rankings for the Sharks, and Shortridge was it. Shortridge jumped like 6 spots for me or something like that. I think he was very consistent. His side-to-side movement was improved. That was the biggest knock on him when he was signed. I think that looked good last night. His glove hand was excellent last night. So yeah, I think that Shortridge right now is, to me, the easy favorite for the backup role to Coronash. And if Coronash has a sophomore slump that we hope doesn't happen, Shortridge may very well split the year with him.
And that I don't think that would be a terrible thing either. Like I really like just fundamentally just the way, you know, his positioning and the way he played his angles. Like I was really impressed by Shortridge. This is the first time I've seen him play. So I didn't see his first game in the AHL. And again, you know, it is a prospect Scrimmage, but I thought like just the fundamentals, like he was the more fundamentally sound of the three. Yeah, composed of the three, I felt.
It's actually funny because I think he gave up the most goals of the goalies, but I'm with you.
Yeah, and again, I mean, you know, it was a shooting gallery against them too.
Yeah.
It was, I mean, he was in an absolute shooting gallery, which again, you know, for those listening, I mean, me and you obviously understand this, but like, again, you throw out the score, you want to look at what the players did more than the end result of the game. And I think that fundamentally, I thought that Shortridge played a really solid game, looked very composed, looked the most complete of the three. Even if he did give up the most goals, like there was a lot to really like about his game.
Yeah, for sure. I know I've said, I think for sure is my new "we'll see" for the night.
Okay.
But I'm with you on this. I mean, I think just all around he was very composed, very poised, and really I'm a lot more comfortable than I was. I mean, like looking at the issues that Sawchenko, I thought Sawchenko was okay. But there were some definite things he needs to work on, and now I can see why he went from being a top-ranked goalie in his draft year to not being drafted at all. But there's some upside, and he'll work obviously with Johan Hedberg and more so Evgeny Nabokov. And then Mike Robinson, man, just the leaky rebounds. He had a really nice save on a shootout attempt against Gus Van Ness, where he basically they had a great camera angle of it on the broadcast, where he deliberately flinched his stick to make Van Ness cheat to the stick side, and then he just swatted away. And I was like, okay, those are the kind of saves that I understand how Mike Robinson had such good stats last year for college, but just overall, his fundamentals were just kind of all over the place. And I know Chris Edwards will be happy to hear that, because Chris Edwards did not like that pick at all. And you didn't either, right, Ian?
No. I did not like that pick. It was just such a off the board pick for me. Like it was like, not only it was like, for me, it was like this goalie didn't need to be drafted. And then it was like, he did not need to be drafted there on top of that. You know, Mike Robinson, you know, compared to previous viewings, I thought he did okay.
Yeah.
There's definitely improvement there. Do I see an NHL goaltender there? No, I still don't see an NHL goaltender there. And, you know, maybe that's a little bias on my part, because I really did hate the pick. And I've kind of, you know, I usually rally against that pick any time I possibly can. So maybe there's some bias there, but I don't see it. I think that there's enough goalies that I don't think he's better than Coronash. I don't think he's better than Bebo. I don't think he's better than Shortridge.
I don't think he's better than
certainly not better than Jones. Right? So, I mean, like I said, he's certainly not better than Jones. So you know, you look at even going for you know, the next few years, I mean, I don't see where he fits in the Sharks.
Yeah.
Like I don't see where he fits. Like,
and again,
with the time that he is at the time where he is going to turn pro, I just don't see a spot for him.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was about to say, Ian, was because, again, I need to double check, but I think he was a junior in college last year. And so that means he's got one more year before he would have to be signed. And to me, I mean, I know Shortridge is on a 1-year deal, given his age. That was the max that he could be signed to. But if Shortridge has a good year, and Coronash is young enough that even if he has a bad year, they're not just going to give up on Coronash. So between those two, the only way Mike Robinson is with the Sharks after college is in an ECHL role. And if that's the case, you might as well find another organization to try and sign on with that maybe you can get an AHL deal on or something.
Sure.
You know? So
yeah. I mean, and and again, that could change. Maybe he comes into camp next year and blows us all away. We'll see. I'll keep the we'll sees going.
Yeah.
Okay, so we talked goalies. We talked Chekovich. We talked. I think obviously we should probably talk about Merkley. I think Merkley being the #1 pick last year. I mean, obviously that's the name that you hear bandied about a lot. I've seen people on Twitter, putting him in their opening night lineups. So what were your thoughts on Ryan Merkley in the scrimmage?
By Merkley, you meant Mario Ferraro for opening night lineup, right? Like, I mean, to me, if the Sharks are relying on one of their young defensemen to be on their roster next year, we might as well just reacquire Mirko Mueller at this point, because it would be a huge trial by fire. Maybe Ferraro's ready. Merkley's definitely not. And with the whole, mind game issues with Merkley and whatnot, why would you want to mess with his head by throwing him into the NHL way too early? I thought the best defensive play of the entire night, ironically or coincidentally, was Ryan Merkley on Mario Ferraro, where Ferraro got set up for a great chance. And then he, I think, rightfully made a diagonal pass to try and set up a goal. I think that was the right play, but Ryan Merkley read it beautifully.
Yep.
It wasn't even he got his stick out. I mean, he got his body and his stick in front of it, intercepted the puck, sent John Leonard the other way on a 2-on-1 in one brisk motion. So those are the kinds of things that with Ryan Merkley, I want to see more of that because we know the skating's there.
Yep.
Think the offense is there. Obviously, time will tell whether that translates to the pro game, because Mark-Edward Vlasic was an offensive defenseman, and no, he's not. Yes. So, but I like where my Ryan Merkley's game is at right now for his age and his skill set. But he's cannot go to the AHL next year and should not go to the NHL next year.
Like, I could see the Sharks giving him like just a couple of games and then sending him back down to junior, but ultimately he's going back to junior. Like, I don't think there's you can't. I mean, for one, the Sharks really aren't hurting for left-hand defensemen at this point. Merkley's left-handed, isn't he? Is he right?
Merkley's left-handed.
Yeah, Merkley's left-handed. Okay, right. So they don't really need a left-handed defenseman at this point. Left hand's, it's the right side where they're kind of got a hole, which is weird for the Sharks because usually that's the side that they're always set on. So I don't really see a spot for him in the opening night roster unless if you make another trade, like unless you go do something like trade Brendan Dillon.
Yeah. Oh, shoot. Ryan Merkley's a right-handed defenseman. My bad.
Even still.
Ferraro's a lefty.
Okay. Ferraro's a lefty. Merkley's a righty. But even still, is if you, let's say you re-sign Tim Heed, is Merkley beating out Tim Heed? No. Because,
yeah, you think Ryan Merkley's going to get any legitimate ice time if Tim Heed and Joachim Ryan couldn't? Who are definitely more developed and more prepared for this game right now?
I mean, there's the spot on the right side. Like, there is a spot on the right side. But if they re-sign Tim Heed, I mean, that's his spot. I can't see anybody that's going to take that spot away from Tim Heed. Like, Tim Heed's going to be, if Tim Heed comes back, he will be the regular six. He'll be in the regular six.
Yeah.
Next season.
Yeah, I agree. I'm still concerned about overloading all the offensive defensemen to the right side.
Yep.
I'd like to see more of a mix. So either whether it's Heed or Merkley, I'm still like behind Carlson and Burns on the right side. I'd like to see a little bit more of a defensive right D, especially come playoff time where you're going to be doing all the stupid matchups and whatnot that I don't believe in. But But people do it anyway.
Sleepy asked a good question. Like between Merkley and we'll get into Ferraro in a minute too.
Yeah.
Between Merkley and Ferraro, who in your opinion, like how would you rank those two if you were to rank them right now?
Well, this is an excellent segue to what I was going to show anyway.
All right.
Which is, if you're watching on YouTube, you get to see it. If you're listening to us on delay on your favorite podcatcher, I do apologize, but I'll try and talk this out. So you should be seeing my depth chart right now for the Barracuda. And on the right-hand side, you have my prospect rankings. And there's Sasha Chmielewski, #1 in the organization. Mario Ferraro, to me, is the next most complete player in the organization, a prospect in the organization. Mario Ferraro is my #2, and Ryan Merkley's #4, because I've got Coronash there in between those two. So for me, it's Ferraro. He's more developed. He looked like a tank on there was a video package that they showed in the arena and online, I believe, right before the scrimmage began. And he looked like a freaking tank out there. I was like, you hear about players opting to play in NCAA because of the workout facilities and whatnot. Mm-hmm. I'm like, man, Mario Ferraro put on some muscle since the last year's camp for sure. So Merkley still looks slight as ever, but yeah.
For me, it's Ferraro as well. I think Ferraro has the more complete game. I think Ferraro, if you had to, let's say you trade Brendan Dillon, and then you're looking to, you have to plug one more hole. I would be more comfortable giving Ferraro a look in the NHL for, even for a couple of games, way more than Merkley. I think Merkley, like, I don't want to like come off as I've soured on Merkley, but his offensive game is fine. His defensive game is still pretty atrocious. He has his moments.
Atrocious. It's just not that. He had moments, and
he had moments, but I mean, just from my viewings of him, his defensive game, it needs a lot of work still. Yeah, and he has all the tools to be an absolutely elite offensive defenseman. But you have to have a monicum. Even like he has to have more, like you have to have more. If you're going to break into the league, you have to have more on your end of the zone. And I still think that in my viewings, and even last night, now again, this is a scrimmage, and look at Merkley is one of the top prospects in the Shark system. He knows this, but I thought he did look, near the end of the game, he did look a little lackadaisical in his own zone. And I thought offensively, he tried to be the whole show a few too many times for my liking.
Yeah, there were too many times I thought last night, especially with the empty net, where Ryan Merkley tried to be the one-man show. Mm-hmm. And when you got Chmielewski and Chikovic out there, like, hello, pass the puck. You got other players to look off of and whatnot. Now, again, I think, Ian, that this was Ryan Merkley just being a little bit immature and thinking, it's a couple minutes left in a prospects camp, so what the hell, I'm going to try this and whatnot. Because, I mean, after it was all over, a bunch of the other prospects came up to him and were joshing with him, and they're laughing. Oh, yeah. And even when Merkley, one of the rushes that he got stripped on coming up the puck, he had a big old laugh on his, on his face coming back and whatnot. So I would not like to see that in training camp, but I guess I guess at this point of the scrimmage, it's fine. It's fine, but yeah, I'd like to see a more composed Ryan Merkley going.
Yeah,
forward.
like I think going forward, I think that going like camp's one I really like for a guy like Ryan Merkley. It's camp that you really want to pay attention to. This is a prospect camp. I mean, it's fine, but like I said, nothing in this camp. I mean, Ryan Merkley would have to just have like a Josh Ho saying, I just didn't come because I was sleeping, to really hurt his rankings in as far as where the Sharks have him in their pecking order. Like he'd have to completely blow it. And then to not do Merkley, right? Like, so I mean, for this, it's I mean, I can understand why people are like, oh, well, he looked lazy. You know, Cheryl sent us a question basically asking about the stuff we talked about. You know, did he look a little lazy? Yeah, a little bit, but at the same time, if you see these trends continue in training camp, then that's a problem. But I am willing to hold back, you know, judgment until training camp, and then we can go from there.
Yeah, definitely. See, I switched it from for sure. I got definitely in there. Four Paws just said in the chat, or someone said in the chat, Ryan Merkley got married this weekend.
News to me.
Wow. Okay. But yeah,
Baby.
for me, Sleepy Mofo, back to your original question, Ferraro, or I guess for both of us, Ferraro and then Merkley.
Yeah.
But Merkley is still definitely of age where he can go back to juniors. So, and I think that'd be the best for him as he continues to progress. But
Joachim Ryan.
Yeah, okay. That made more sense to me. So.
Yeah, I think you know, and I've said this before, when it comes to Ferraro and Merkley, like Ferraro's the better player today.
Yeah.
But I don't think like Merkley's ceiling is much higher. The question is will Merkley hit that ceiling?
Yeah.
Whereas Ferraro is, you know, Ferraro's like right here today. You know, Merkley's ceiling's up here still.
Yeah.
For you, those that can't see me talking with my hands on the audio, I apologize. Basically, you know, Merkley has the potential to be the better defenseman, but the better defenseman today is Mario Ferraro. Let's talk about the fight, because
hang on before, just real quick, because last year I said Mario Ferraro has captain material written all over for him.
I agree,
and I think that's another just layer for Mario Ferraro that I like him more. Is that, I mean, he really. He has a maturity about him off and on the ice that I really like this kid. So, and that was a player where when he was picked, I was like, nah, okay, all right. I wasn't wow. I was. What do you say? You and Zach used to say whelmed.
Yes, I was whelmed.
But now I'm huge on Mario Ferraro. So, but yeah, let's talk about the fight. That was there was some shenanigans on the ice there and towards the end of the game.
Okay, so it was Zach Gallant and
Leon Bergman.
Leon Bergman, who was was he a draft?
He was a free agent signing out of the DEL. He's only, I believe, 20 years old.
Okay. You know, I was kind of like, it kind of just like, I knew it was coming, but it kind of was like, it was near the end of the scrimmage, so I was kind of already checked out a little bit, so I didn't really see what went down. I didn't go back. It's not very common thing you see anymore these days, you know, especially in a prospect scrimmage. Like in a preseason game, sure, preseason games used to be just stupid with fighting, and sometimes they are still a little bit, but I find like even that's happening a lot less now. Very rare to happen in a prospect game, but yeah, you know, it's good. Give the fans something to see.
As far as I'm aware, this is the first time. I mean, I said I've been to all of them, and I know for sure there have been no other fights at the prospects scrimmage. I think there may have been one at a training camp scrimmage a couple of years ago, but the photo that I have up right now, and again, if you are listening, you can follow me at Kevin Lacey 22. I posted this last night. It is Zach Gallant on top of Leon Bergman as they're both just slugging it out. I was, as I was all night, I was tweeting. So when Leon Bergman, he did something with about 5 minutes left in the scrimmage. And I even tweeted about that, like, oh, he just drew the ire of Team Ricci for something. And then something else happened where all of a sudden Zach Gallant comes flying in with a linesman, like trying to hold him back. And I could hear from where I was sitting, Zach Gallant say, and I'll remove the expletives from this, but he said, do you want to go? Let's go right now, with some other verbiage in there. And Bergman just kind of skated away. But then with literally seconds left in the scrimmage, Zach Gallant got thrown out on the ice by Brian Marchment. I'm assuming to try and start something, but Leon Bergman just spun around and cross-checked Gallant right in the face.
Yeah.
And it was pretty bad. So when you look at this photo and you see Gallant mounted on top of him, because I've had a couple of people comment to me saying, how can he do that? He's down on his back and he's throwing punches. I'm saying, okay, you just got cross-checked in the face by a guy that you already were trying to fight. Like,
yeah,
there's some anger there. Hockey Jerk tweeted last night saying, this is not about the show. This is about some straight up anger between these two. So
absolutely.
I'm so glad I got this photo just because it's like, oh man, what an action shot. But they were both of them were getting their bombs in, Ian.
Yeah. Yeah, they certainly did. Usually, like, when it happens, like, I remember you saying something about the training camp, and I believe, you know, you'll often get stuff in training camp where a young guy maybe takes liberties on a veteran, and then guys will go after, and I believe that's what happened. I think it was last year or the year before, one of the young guys put a hit on Hurdle that they didn't like, and someone else went, and I think it was Dylan, went over and told him what.
Yeah, that happened. You're right.
That did happen. Yeah, and I'm pretty sure it was Brendan Dillon. I don't remember who the rookie was, but I'm pretty sure Hurdle was the one that got hit, and Dillon didn't like it, and he went over and told him what was what.
But for me, like, I didn't mind it out of either one of these guys. Like, you know, I'm not one that I don't really have an opinion on fighting in hockey. I do have an opinion on fighting in youth hockey. But in the pro game, I don't really have a sway one way or the other here. But I didn't mind it with Leon Bergman or Zach Gallant because you've got Leon Bergman, who I thought showed great speed last night. Yeah. He had some flashes of creativity with the puck. Again, a free agent signing out of Germany. So he went undrafted. That's already going to be a chip on his shoulder. And on a deep Barracuda roster next year, and by deep, I just mean they have so many players. I already showed you my depth chart on the Barracuda here earlier. And I mean, that's 18 forwards, and that could include Vela and Kazarenkov, which would be 20 forwards. Bergman's got to get himself noticed out there. So he played with a bit of an edge, didn't mind that. It's probably what he's going to have in the AHL next year. Right. And then Zach Gallant, again, I said it earlier, a third-round pick who was let go by the Red Wings. His skating was bad, Ian. Like, yeah, I thought he had some nice chemistry with Joachim Blichfeld, who I'll just really quickly on Blichfeld. I thought another kind of invisible showing for Blichfeld for me. But I do think that when Gallant and Blichfeld were out there together, Gallant was the muscle. Blichfeld had the puck and was trying to set things up. So that was nice to see. But when you are trying to earn a training camp spot in September, like Zach Gallant is, go out there and show that you're not going to get literally shoved around. So
absolutely
good on him. Good on both of them.
Yeah. So did anyone from this draft class, the most recent draft class, really stand out to you? Because for me, again, watching, just, you know, having the video and not really being able to see, you know, who is who and trying to memorize numbers really quickly, nothing really stood out to me from this year's draft class.
Yeah, I would have liked to have seen more out of them. I mean, we were pretty meh on the class on the whole this year. Correct, if you guys watched last week's show, if you didn't, please go back and rewatch last week's show. It was great. I'd like to think it was great.
I think it was okay. Yeah, it was good. I apparently I had audio issues that I don't have today, which is nice.
Good. Good. But for me, Igor Spiridonov had a couple of really nice plays on the back check to completely strip pucks away. For me, it was, all right, now that you've stripped the puck, what are you going to do with it? So that's going to be a work in progress for him. He was, of course, known, when we talked about it last week, he's known for being very cognitive in the defensive zone as a forward, but the offensive will need to come around. He's still my favorite, well, except for Dylan Hamiluk, who did not he attended, but he did not participate in the
Right.
camp all week. So I know he was recovering from, I believe it was knee surgery.
Yeah.
He's my top rated prospect still, but I couldn't see him. So,
Right.
but like Nyazev was okay. He made, I think defensively, he was better than I expected, but some of the passes that he made, I think that just those are passes that are not going to fly in pro hockey. Like those are the kinds of plays where it's like, all right, I'm not expecting other players to be able to play defense and forecheck and steal pucks and whatnot kind of thing. But once he gets that under his belt, like knowing when and where to pass, I think it's fine because his puck control was good.
Yep.
Hataka was okay. And Ibragimov wasn't there, or Ibragimov, sorry, wasn't there. And was that the draft class? I guess that was the draft class.
Pretty much the draft class, yeah. All right, so I mean that was basically the prospect scrimmage in a nutshell. I mean, there was some, obviously there was some other stuff too. Again, you don't want to take way too much from the scrimmage. I think that, again, I'm not worried. Like, again, I was kind of meh on this year's draft class, and this is really a first showing for them. So I feel like I'm not too concerned. Like these guys, this is their first showing. We're gonna see them again, and they're gonna have more time. Like they're attending camp for the first time. They're gonna get stuff that the coaches are gonna tell them to work on, and then we'll see them again. And and then you can really go out from there and try and figure out what's what. But it was still nice to see a lot of them in camp, considering most of them won't be playing in North America this year. So it was nice to see that they were able to come to camp.
Yeah, boy, yeah, a lot of Russians in this year's camp. I was kind of waiting to see if Danny Miller was going to be able to say Artem Ivanyazhenkov, but he didn't get a penalty or a point or anything, so we never got that one. But Ivanyazhenkov, folks.
So we're a day, 2 days away from free agent frenzy. Obviously, teams are making moves. We talked about the Kessel trade earlier. We had some buyouts today. Dallas buying out Valery Nichushkin, and Vancouver buying out Ryan Spooner. Obviously, the logic says that these are both moves to bring in other players. Dallas might bring in some Joe Pavelski guy. I don't know if you've heard of him. And Vancouver, obviously, Tyler Myers has been rumored to be there. So obviously Vancouver clearing some room. I don't think Tyler Myers is going to come in at the price that everyone said he was going to come in at. I still think it's going to be too much, but I guess we should talk about Joe Pavelski.
I know that Canucks fans are freaking out negatively about the possibility of signing Tyler Myers to the contract that is being rumored.
Well, they should. I mean, they just got stiffed with the Luongo buyout recapture, so they've already lost $3 million off their cap, and then you talk about bringing a guy like Tyler Myers for $7 or $8 million. I mean, that's just crazy talk to me. And look at Vancouver. This is another team where this is the new NHL. You've got guys that are going to come up. Besser's coming up. Pedersen's not far after that. I mean, you can't lock up all this money, and that's the thing that we've talked about with Vancouver is they keep locking up these middling veterans. Well, I'm not saying Tyler Myers is a middling veteran, but when you sign an overvalued contract like that for a player like Tyler Myers, obviously those middling veterans you've signed to really long deals for, not stupid break the bank, but the term on them is not good. And I don't know how they do it, like I don't know. For me, like I feel like Vancouver, when they traded for TJ Miller, just JT Miller, thank you. When they did that, like I wouldn't be super confident that the 21 pick isn't going to be a lottery pick.
Yeah, well, didn't we just talk about Vancouver on the last show about how
Vancouver's the new Toronto?
I guess so, but Vancouver, I think we the three of us were in agreement that Vancouver is going to be in the mix, but miss the playoffs. And missing the playoffs means you still have a chance at a lottery pick. And so, yeah, I'm with you on that, Ian. I don't know. Now,
maybe they make the playoffs this year, and then they get rid of that pick, and they're not in the lottery, and that pick is next year. But I'm not sold that if this team misses the playoffs this year, that they're going to be able to do anything with the money that they're talking about throwing around to be any better in 2021.
Yeah. Hockey Jerk. And I was trying to pull it up, but I started lagging the video feed, so I nixed it. Yeah. Because my video feed, of course, is choppy enough already. So Hockey Jerk at hockey_jerk posted our predictions for where players will sign, although I was really upset that he included Carl Gunnarsson on the list, despite the fact he'd already re-signed with St. Louis and made us all look bad.
I always look bad on these things. My 14 points are the lowest on the show.
But did you pick Vancouver for Tyler Myers?
You know what? I don't even remember.
Because so I was going to say, if you pull up that tweet, those of you out in Twitterland and whatnot, Twitterverse, you'll see all of our predictions. But I said Vancouver would be smart and not take Tyler Myers, but they would spend some money on Anton Strawman. So,
yeah.
I'm not saying that's any better. I like Anton Strawman, and I actually do like him better than Myers, but for the money that Vancouver could still potentially throw out there, I don't know.
I do have Tyler Myers in Vancouver.
Okay, Tyler Myers to Vancouver there. So, yeah, we'll see what... there's a we'll see. But yeah, Vancouver is definitely going to do some things, and I don't think they should. So,
all right. Joe Pavelski.
Yeah, I was going to say, you mentioned Joe Pavelski already. This hurts.
It does, doesn't it?
Yeah. So Mike Commodore, who actually is pretty good about like not posting just random crap that isn't true.
Right.
Mike Commodore says that Joe Pavelski may be going to Dallas, or is, he says, going to Dallas. That'll break my heart. Everyone knows that Dallas is the team I hate the most, more than the Ducks, more than the Kings, more than the Knights. I hate the Stars, and Joe Pavelski is my guy. So,
right.
Oh, this will hurt if this is true.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know.
From a sentimental,
hurt, right? Like, this is supposed to hurt. If it didn't hurt, then I don't know. Then what the hell? I just think that the anger is being incredibly misplaced as far as
absolutely. I'm with you there.
I know in just chats, like you made some great points about it, and I think I completely agree with them. I'll let you, I'll let you give your opinion, and then I have an amendum to it.
Okay,
so go ahead.
So I had the thought last night, because we talked last week about Erik Karlsson being re-signed to the money that he did, and that if he was going to re-sign with the Sharks, that's what it was going to take. I'm not saying that I believe this. I'm just throwing it out here. What if Joe Pavelski was plan A for the Sharks, and he, after the playoffs, told Doug Wilson, I'm not coming back. And so plan B was, well, if Joe Pavelski is not coming back, let's throw all the money at Erik Karlsson at this point. Maybe... Erik Karlsson also put out a tweet seemingly that he was not coming back to the Sharks. So maybe it was, Erik Karlsson, we like you. We know you want this money. We can't really make this work. And then then Joe Pavelski decided, no, I'm not coming back. And then it was, all right, Erik Karlsson, we will give this money after all, kind of thing. So I just, again, I'm not necessarily believing that, but throwing all the blame at Erik Karlsson and, oh my God, why are we using all this money on him? And it's costing us Pavelski. Joe Pavelski has a say in this too.
Yeah.
So, Ian, what is your counter to that?
It's not so much a counter as an amendum. I think let's take salary. Let's pretend the Sharks have just tons of salary cap room right now. Okay, is signing Joe Pavelski at $8 million or $7 million for 4 years a good contract? Forget cap space. Forget Erik Karlsson. Forget Evander Kane. Forget all of that. Just put your thinking cap on and just let's look at this objectively. Let's look at this one contract. Is that a good contract? I would argue absolutely not. Under any circumstances, is that a good contract? And if that is what it would take to bring back Joe Pavelski, the Sharks are right to walk away, regardless of cap crunch, no cap crunch, regardless, because that's the best business decision you can make. That's the best decision you could make for the competitive nature of the team. Does that mean it has to feel good? Does that mean that, well, yeah, okay, it makes business sense, so no one should be sadder, to see Joe Pavelski go? Of course not. I love Joe Pavelski. I've made no bones about loving Joe Pavelski. But at this point in his career, and if you look what just happened with Marleau in Toronto, do you want to be the team holding the bag for 2 years if things go really downhill over the next 2 years? Do you want to be the team holding the bag? Yes, you might get some, a couple of more good seasons of Joe Pavelski, but this is a guy who shot 8% over his career average shooting percentage last year and scored 38 goals. But, when he's not going to do that again. He's not going to continue shooting 20% It's just not going to happen. Like, there's way too much risk in this contract, in my opinion. If you look at it objectively, there's far too much risk based on just the term and the money alone. Forget the cap space, forget everything else. It's a bad deal. And if someone else wants to give that deal to them, all the power to them. And if Joe Pavelski wants to make that money, all the power to him. It sucks. It's the end of an era in San Jose. But at the end of the day, I think if you really take off the feels for a second and just look at it from a business/competitive standpoint, you don't want to be holding the bag on that deal in the last 2 years. And the Sharks are doing the absolute right thing by, letting them go.
I think that the Patrick Marleau, letting go of Patrick Marleau was the predecessor to this in a way, because Marleau got let go for the same reasons. And
didn't want to sign the term. He wanted too much term.
He wanted too much term, and then look what ended up happening. Toronto could not wait to let him go. They traded him to Carolina. He got bought out, and Patrick Marleau unofficially is coming back to the Sharks on July 1st. I love Patrick Marleau too, but I feel like we moved on from him.
Yeah.
And so I don't like that. But for Pavelski, it's the same thing. The Sharks have enough long-term contracts that they're having issues with, and who knows what the CBA is going to be after the next work stoppage that shouldn't even be happening. Right. So in that aspect, yeah, you cannot sign. Why would Joe Pavelski sign a 2-year deal? If you're Joe Pavelski, why would you sign a 2-year deal?
Right. I mean, it makes perfect sense. It makes perfect sense to me from both sides. Look at the contract is a bad contract, but if you're Joe Pavelski and you can get that deal, this is your last ring the bell contract. And, look, I think the Sharks are going to have some depth issues this year. I know Joe Pavelski is turned down. I know there's a question in the chat about, is Joe Pavelski going to consider Arizona now? I doubt it. He already told Columbus, no thanks. I mean, he's wants to go to a team where he can win. Now, Dallas is a little iffy on there for me, but Joe Pavelski's a hell of an upgrade over Jason Spezza at this point.
Yeah. Yeah. And excuse me. I'm mad that I picked Minnesota for Joe Pavelski's landing spot. I met the Minnesota North Stars, who became the Dallas Stars.
Right.
Foreseen? No, but it just, man, this sucks. Like it's just,
yeah.
this sucks, and I don't know what the Sharks are going to do to replace him. Like someone mentioned in the chat, let me see if I can try and find it. But someone said, like, oh, it was Bearded Sharks Guy 661. He said, how are we feeling that there's no update or link about the Sharks being linked to any other free agents right now to replace a guy like Joe Pavelski? And I think part of that is just the salary cap issues that the Sharks have, even without Pavelski, trying to re-sign Timo Meier, trying to re-sign Kevin LeBanc. I mean,
there's $6 million there conservatively. There's between those two, that's probably $6 million.
Yeah, that's conservatively too. So I think that's part of it. I mean, I have this weird hunch the Sharks are going to sign Josh Archibald, but where's Josh Archibald going to play? Third line at best, so he's not going to replace Joe Pavelski there. So
like, that's the thing. Like, I don't see Nyquist coming back for the same reason, because the Sharks just, unless we're going full Sharkakuda, I don't understand how, like, you're going to fill those depth holes. Let's say you lose Donskoy, you're going to have to fill. There's spots on that back end, like on the bottom six, that you have to fill.
Yeah.
And and the other thing too, though, is like, who's going to replace Joe Pavelski's 38 goals is the big question, right? I don't think Joe Pavelski is going to replace 38 goals next year, let alone anyone else. Like, maybe he does, and maybe he does. Maybe he goes to Dallas and
he's got a shot.
It up. Could happen, right? But I'm just saying, like, for me, I don't think on this team Joe Pavelski is replacing Joe Pavelski's 38 goals next season, because I think that his shooting percentage is going to dip back down to normal, like these things generally tend to do. I'm not saying that Joe Pavelski leaving isn't going to cause short-term pain, but I strongly believe it will be long-term gain for the Sharks, because you're not going to be holding the bag on a bad contract, in 2 years.
Yeah, totally right. So even though it sucks, it business-wise, it makes sense for what we think Joe Pavelski will sign for. And Sleepy Mofo had a funny comment in the chat that said, in 3 years, we'll say Doug Wilson is a genius for not signing Joe Pavelski when he ultimately gets traded by Dallas to Ottawa and is subsequently bought out. Wow. But don't you know it's going to be Arizona or Carolina who still will be struggling to reach?
Yeah, I'm going to say Ottawa's not buying anyone out. They have no money.
Corey Brown also asking, what are our projected contracts for Timo Meier and Kevin LeBanc? I know we have talked about this before, but we should bring it back up. The only problem is I don't remember what I said.
Me neither. My opinions change by the week. I said together 6 conservatively. I want to say 4.5 for Meier, and then the rest goes to Kevin LeBanc.
See, if I recall, I thought Meier was going to get $7 million a year because of the players that are like Timo Meier. Those are the kind of contracts that they're getting between their youth and their output. Even though, to me, one good year should not, hello, Leon Draisaitl, although it's worked out for Edmonton, but one good year should not earn you $1 bajillion. But I think that the Sharks their only argument for giving Meier less and LeBanc less, like how you just said, is, look, we only have so much that we can work with, guys. We will give you the money down the line if you stick this out, but right now, this is what we can afford to give you. I think that's their only argument, the only case.
This actually segues into another topic that I wanted to go over with you.
Oh, okay.
That is offer sheet hysteria.
Oh, God.
Right? Like, and the other thing, I think, because everyone's like, this is the thing, right? Offer sheets. Will we see an offer sheet? I'm not saying we won't see an offer sheet this year, but they're still so incredibly rare. Like, look at the guys that are out there that you could offer sheet. You could offer sheet Patrick Laine. You could offer sheet Mitch Marner. You could offer sheet Mikko Rantanen. Like, of all the guys that, I mean, yes, you could probably pry a guy out of the Sharks by making them match a contract for Timo Meier. But at the same time, I don't see it happening. Like, I really think it's overblown hysteria. I'm really not afraid of a Timo Meier offer sheet. And barring that, Timo has two options: sign the check that they give him or go home and sit at home. That's it. Same with Kevin Labanc. And eventually, you look at your stock doesn't get any higher when you're sitting at home after one good season.
Yeah, that worked so well for William Nylander this year.
Right. So barring an offer sheet, which I don't see it. Like, do you think that there's going to be serious offer sheets this year? Like, I don't. It's the same jackasses running all the teams that don't do offer sheets already.
Yeah, offer sheets can be a thing, but how often do they happen? They don't happen. And I guess if someone is gutsy enough to do it, I mean, part of the reason why you don't see offer sheets is because GMs are not trying to piss each other off to the point where now they're alienating themselves and costing themselves trade relations down the line.
Not even that, but potential future employment.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, these guys hold grudges. I mean, there are grudges, like, all through, because again, it's the old boys club and they play by the old boys rules, and offer sheets are really frowned upon. I mean, anytime we've seen an offer sheet, it's definitely been just a contentious situation between those GMs. And if you don't think like hockey, grudges are real, Pat Burns had to wait till he was dead to get in the Hall of Fame. And that was by design, because there was a grudge against him by one of the voting members that kept voting to keep him out. Like, these things happen. And especially when you look at, obviously executives that have done, I'm not saying that they never work again, but you look at GMs and coaches get fired all the time. And GMs especially. And you don't want to be the guy that, gets blackballed because, oh, hey, look, there's a GM opening here, but I offer sheeted Mitch Marner. And now I can't even cry. Like, I don't know. I don't see it. I think you might see some, but even though the Sharks are in a pinch, maybe Chicago does it just to slap us in the face for what happened.
That's the one offer sheet that I could see happening.
And I would.
Yeah. And could you argue against it? I mean,
nope.
For me, I'd be like, we kind of deserve it.
Now, should offer sheets happen more of the time? Absolutely. Offer sheets should happen all the time, because if you are a GM,
it's a great strategy.
Your job is to make your team better, and you should be using every resource you have available to you to make your team better. And if you see another team bent over the barrel and have a player that they need to sign, you should absolutely be doing that. You should absolutely be doing that to make your team better. But the reality is they really don't happen. I can't see. Look, at the Sharks are going to match any reasonable offer, and then if it's not a reasonable offer where the Sharks don't feel they can match it, the compensation is going to be too good to turn down.
Yeah, and there's also another aspect of it that isn't stressed enough, which is the player still has to sign the offer sheet, and that's actually where I would love to be a true insider. Is I want to know how many offer sheets do get sent out each offseason that don't actually get signed, so you never hear about it. I'd love to know that info.
Or just uses leverage, in a negotiation. Well, I could sign this offer sheet over here. They're offering me this, and this, and then, maybe we can meet in the middle somewhere.
What you just said, Ian, I guarantee that happens a lot more than we think it does.
Maybe you need to up this bonus. Maybe you need, it's ridiculous. I don't know. I think that a lot of people are obviously it's June, it is June hockey writing. There's not a lot to write about. So you make up things that can throw in people in hysteria. And this year it's offer sheets because of the caliber of the RFAs available. And just because the way RFAs are getting paid right now. To your point, Kevin, I mean, obviously, Timo Meier could sign an offer. I don't think there's enough teams out there with the stomach for the compensation. The compensation for an offer sheet like that would be incredibly high.
Yeah.
In order to get, you're giving up, you are hoping that this guy, And I think Timo Meier's a great player, and I think he's going to be a great player. But man, is he 4 first-round picks good? I don't know.
Right. Right. It's also there's always this balance. I mean, to me, from a GM's perspective, is would you give up this much to trade for the player? Like, give up the same amount you would in an offer sheet as you would in a trade. If you wouldn't trade that compensation, then why would you offer sheet him in the first place? So,
Bingo.
yeah, it's definitely an interesting scenario that could happen. I think too much is made of it, and I don't see it happening at all. Although, hey, it's a good thing Jeff Merrick is not a GM. Love you, Jeff Merrick, by the way. But it's a good thing he's not a GM in the league, because he'd absolutely offer sheet Timo Meier. He loves that guy.
Yeah. You know, and I think the one thing too, and it's just Forepaws brought it up in the chat, like, and maybe you don't go after Timo Meier, maybe you offer sheet Kevin LeBanc. And that would actually be interesting for me, because I think at that point I think that would be the trickier offer sheet for the Sharks, because you're not going to blow the doors off for Kevin LeBanc, so the compensation isn't going to be fantastic. But you could really, you know, much like we did with Hjalmarsson, a team could really put the screws to us through Kevin LeBanc over Timo Meier, who I think just gets matched and they deal with the fallout. Kevin LeBanc would really, you know, because I think the Sharks would match, because the compensation wouldn't be good for what I feel he would get.
Yeah.
So I feel like because the compensation will be great, they'd have to match, and then that really hurts their cap picture even more. But then again, you're Kevin LeBanc. You signed an offer sheet. Now you've kind of soured your relationship with the team. So,
yeah, that's why I think that players don't sign the offer sheets, is because they're trying to not upset the organization they're sticking around with, and then. Right. I mean, Peter DeBoer holds grudges for sure. So could you imagine the order getting sent down of give Kevin LeBanc 8 minutes a night because he signed an offer sheet that we match, kind of thing. I'd hope that you'd err on the side of hockey and whether or not you want to win games more than grudges. But it, like you said, it happens. Yep. The difference with the Hjalmarsson situation, though, was they offer sheeted Hjalmarsson, but I believe Antiniemi was an unrestricted free agent, if I recall.
No, Hjalmarsson was restricted. We offer sheeted him, and then we
no. But it forced them to not be able to sign Niemi because Niemi was a UFA, I think.
Nope, I'm pretty sure Niemi was an RFA, and I can't remember if he was an UFA or RFA. But either way, they had to. I want to say Antiniemi. Oof, I might have to.
I think you're no. I think you're on.
Antiniemi got an arbitration reward that they walked away from.
Yeah, I think you are right on that. Yeah,
I would have to go and check my I'd have to go do some digging, but I feel like Antiniemi got an arbitration award and they had to walk away from it because of the Hjalmarsson offer sheet.
Yeah, that sounds right. I think you're right on that. So all right. Wow, what a show! What a show!
You want to talk about the Palm Springs?
Oh yeah. Jeez, what a show. Let's continue. Really quickly, guys, going back to kind of AHL hockey here. It's been a hot topic in the chat, which over the whole season, which hopefully some of those of you watching on replay, for example, can chime in on the next show. Palm Springs has applied for an American Hockey League team to become the 32nd franchise in the AHL, and Seattle is the driving force behind this. So Seattle, it was reported in the Seattle Times earlier in the week, so that this will be the to-be-named Seattle franchise's AHL club. So it's not Fresno, it's not Sacramento, it's not Boise, who I really thought Boise, Idaho was going to be it. So, wow. In Palm Springs, another Southern California AHL team. Huh?
Well, you know what? I mean, I like this, and I'll tell you why I like this. Because you want to, a lot of teams like Vancouver came out and said it's nice to have your prospects close by, but it's also nice to have them be able to play more games and, get more games in because of a lighter travel schedule that they have in the East. And I think if you can replicate that in the California area in the West, I think that would be the best thing for the AHL. I would love to see, the Western Conference, or especially the Pacific Division, play as many games as the rest of the league.
Definitely.
And I think this is why I like this move, because I feel like that can push things closer to, actually playing the same number of games. Because I think if you're a team, you want your team, and this is why Vancouver's, been really high on keeping their team in Utica, is because they want their team to be, they want their teams to play. They want their guys to play as many games as possible.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense when you phrase it that way, because the AHL is 100% regional based. That's why the playoffs most of the time is a 2-3-2 format, because they don't want the extra travel that a 2-2, 1-1-1 playoffs series has. So they do the 2-3-2 just to limit the travel. If the teams are more than 300 miles apart. So on that respect, or that aspect, I absolutely agree with you there. I am curious to know, because I meant to look this up and I forgot. I know Palm Springs used to have a baseball team that played in the same league as the San Jose Giants. Okay. As far as I recall, it failed miserably because nobody attended those games. But it's a little different when you're in Palm Springs in the summer, outdoors watching baseball versus indoors, nice 70-degree weather. And so I think it could work but they're going to have to build an arena there. Yes. Apparently the works are for a 10,000 seat arena there, and they've got 2 years to do it in. So,
I mean, we'll see. But
we'll see.
I mean, I look at, you know what though, like, again, even in the AHL, San Diego does amazing numbers.
Oh, they're incredible.
I'm not saying that that's the same across all of the Western teams, but I'm just saying, like, you wouldn't, like, if you told me, oh, well, hockey's really, AHL hockey's big in San Diego. If I was not an AHL fan, if I wasn't, a fan of the Barracuda, didn't follow them as close as I try to,
yeah,
I would never have guessed that. I would have never have said, yeah, San Diego, hotbed of AHL hockey. No, there's no way in hell.
Yeah. Ontario is the same way. Ontario has one of the best attendances. That was terribly said there, but their attendance is very high as well. And I would have never thought that too. So yeah, you're right.
Bearded Sharks guy, I am correct. Hawks walked away from Niemi because of an arbitration case.
There you go. You get a cookie, Ian. Treat yourself.
I get a foresaw point.
A foresaw. a hindsight point.
I gotta recall the fact correctly, which at my age is a very important thing.
Christine says Palm Springs is a very weird location. Yeah, that was the thought that I had.
Yeah.
But
it's a weird location.
It's right.
Who knows?
Yeah, I guess at this point, if I really thought Boise was going to be it, so maybe the Steelheads become the ECHL affiliate. I don't know. Real quick, since I'm thinking about minor league hockey, okay. Carolina and I've already forgotten, but Carolina switched ECHL affiliates, so Greenville's now their affiliate, and whoever was with Greenville is now in Florida. But then the big thing for me was Mike Vellucci, the head coach of Charlotte, who just won the Calder Cup, left the organization and then signed with the Wilkes-Barre Scranton Penguins. That was a shocker to me. I don't know if it's like a better opportunity to join the NHL staff down the line for Vellucci, or just I was stunned when I heard that yesterday. But I don't know if you have any thoughts on that, Ian. But it's just something I wanted to mention. So
I have nothing.
Yeah,
I'm a blank slate at this point.
Yeah, it's all good. It's all good.
I guess more hockey more hockey anywhere is better. I mean, I can't stress this enough. For all the barbs and stuff we throw at the Coyotes, if the Coyotes weren't there, Austin Matthews probably picks up a baseball bat, probably picks up a football. He doesn't pick up a hockey stick. Like, it's not going to be, it's not an overnight thing. But you're seeing, like, look how many players are coming out of California now. It's
A
crazy.
ton.
And that doesn't happen if there's no hockey teams here. It doesn't happen if just the Kings are here, you know, like it was back in the day. Like you need teams that are established, and, you know, I mean, obviously healthy is important for the league and the fans and everything else, but you need to put teams in stupid places to grow the sport. Quote unquote stupid places. I'm not actually saying they're stupid. I just, you know, like eventually it pays off, because eventually that kid that goes and, you know, that kid that goes to the Florida game because he got tickets from getting a car wash, you know, maybe he picks up a hockey stick, and then, you know, that's what you're looking for when you expand to a new market. You're looking for, yeah, you need the initial season ticket base, but you want that next generation of fan, the one that's gonna, you know, that has the potential of saying, hey, you know what, I like hockey and I don't really care about baseball, I don't really care about football, and I'm gonna buy season tickets when I finally have the money to do so. And that's how you build the sport. And you can't do that if you don't put hockey in markets where it won't work.
Yeah, you have to try.
Yeah,
you have to try.
It doesn't always work. I'm not saying it's you know, success every time. Obviously, you know, we've seen teams move, we've seen teams fail, but you have to try. If you don't try, you know, if you don't at least put the team there to start, you're not even in the game at that point. So
a couple of comments in the chat, and then we should wrap up. Corey Brown says Sacramento is stupid. Just put a team there. You know, in the infancy of this show, back when we were Pucknology Writers Room, and even I think at the start of Teal Tinted Glasses.
When we wrote stuff?
Huh?
I said when we all wrote stuff.
When we all wrote, yeah, when we did all write stuff. Jeez. I was very adamant about when Golden One Center opens up in Sacramento, the Barracuda will absolutely move there. And that didn't, I went to the second ever event. I think it was the second weekend after it opened, and that arena is not equipped for hockey. I could not believe it. But it's just the size of the floor plan and versus the seating they have, it just won't work. And that's why Sacramento doesn't have a team, or the Barracuda haven't moved there, or whatever. Mm-hmm. And then Bearded Sharks guy asked about the Northwest. Well, like, why wouldn't the Seattle team? I keep wanting to call them a name, but we don't have a name, which I think is coming towards the end of the summer, if I'm not mistaken. But why wouldn't they put them in the Northwest? Again, the comments that Ian said, I think, are extremely valid, but also with cities that you mentioned, like Portland, and I don't think Tacoma, but Spokane, other Northwestern teams, they have the Western Hockey League, and towns like that or cities like that love their minor league sports. Like Norfolk, Virginia, they tried Major League Baseball, and a group at least tried to move the Montreal Expos, and I think even the Orioles to Norfolk. And the citizens said, no, we are content with our minor league teams. We like staying small market. You know, and that just happens. And I think that's the case with a lot of the WHL cities. That's why I was surprised when Seattle got a team, because they do. The Thunderbirds are in Kent, so it's not true Seattle. So that's a difference. But I was surprised because I thought there was enough solid fan base in Seattle to be, no, we're fine with our team that we've got with the T-Birds.
And that was more about, you know, the Seattle expansion is more about, you know, television in the Northwest. That's what the Seattle expansion is about. It's about television. It's about U.S. television dollars. Because, yes, the Canucks are there, but the Canucks aren't regionally carried in the Pacific Northwest United States. Right? So when you're looking for a new TV deal, you obviously want to make sure that all your major markets are covered, and the NHL was not covered in the Pacific Northwest, period. So, and that's a big reason why, you know, Seattle, something in that area had to be done for the NHL. The NHL had to get in that market. Christine,
I'm fine with that, because I mean, Calgary and Edmonton have their own, you know, rivalry and whatnot, in close proximity to each other mostly. at least same province.
Yeah.
But Vancouver, I think this is really going to benefit Vancouver from just having their Calgary and Edmonton rivalry, like having a geographical rival would really help, just like it has with the Sharks and the Knights and the Stars, screw the Stars, and the Ducks and the Kings. So
just I want to quickly get to something Christine said. She said, like, because what I was saying about teams, and she's like, obviously Palm Springs isn't exactly a market you would think of young growing families. I was more speaking, you're right in that respect. Obviously Palm Springs, it is weird. It's a weird market, I'm not gonna lie, but I was more talking from like an NHL level as far as growing the game. I think, yeah, Palm Springs is a weird place, but you still have, you know, I'm sure you have plenty of snowbirds, and we all know how that worked out for Florida.
yeah,
But yeah, no, but I mean, my point was just more in general, like from an NHL level, because I think that, you know, minor league hockey is one thing, but I think, you know, to really major league sport, look at everyone loves their major league sports. I mean, I have an OHL city here, but I would watch an NHL game, you know, unless I got tickets for free, then I'd go to the OHL game, I guess. But if there was a big game, like, you know, if we're talking 2 playoff games, then I had to choose between, you know, the Sharks in an elimination game and the Hounds in an elimination game. It's the Sharks every time. This is the way it is.
Yeah.
So anyway, we should get out of here because we are.
Yeah, I'm roasting in here.
I know I'm dying as well because I don't know what fan right now. It's so humid.
No, I'm really glad that, you know, I hope everyone enjoyed the show tonight. It ended up being a much bigger show than we thought it was going to be with the Phil Kessel trade to start out. And then really got going here with free agency talk, because I'm not sure, Ian, I don't know what your availability is for free agency. I know my week, as much as I'd like to do a free agency show, my week's actually pretty busy. So
yeah, I work Monday night. So it would have to, like, I don't know. I'm not saying no. I'm just saying, like, I have more flexibility this week to do something earlier because of my family not being here. It's just me and the household alone.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So I do have some flexibility because my family's on a little bit of a vacay, and I unfortunately could not get it off. So I do have some flexibility, but it would have to be early because I have to go to work.
Yeah, right. Yeah, so just, of course, as we've said before, if you're new to the show, subscribe to Teal Tinted Glasses and set your alerts so that you are alerted the next time we do one. And of course, follow at Teal Tinted Pod. And I feel like I've plugged everyone else's Twitter. Ian, at Ian Blogs Hockey. There you go.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so, you know, follow him. That way you'll definitely know when our next show will be, whenever that is. But I hope you enjoyed this one, because I definitely had fun. It's always good to talk prospects.
Yeah, absolutely.
I've topped 700 followers on Twitter, which is amazing, because I remember this time last year I was saying push for 500, and now I'm already over 700. So I really appreciate that, you know, all of your follows and tweets, and the fact that you really, you know, I try and cover aspects of hockey, or we try to cover aspects of hockey that aren't talked about enough. That's kind of where we're at here. And so appreciate your support. So thank you. What happened?
Things are still fluid. This is from Pierre LeBrun. Things are still fluid, but hearing as of now, it's basically Colorado and an unidentified team for UFA winger Jonas Donskoy. Oh, that is going to hurt.
Colorado for Donskoy?
Well, I just hate life now.
Okay, well, there's breaking news. So if you stuck it out through the near 2 hours, you just got a gem right there. So, wow.
Okay, anyway, I think my Twitter fillers have declined a little bit because I've made people angry. I apologize. I'm a lot snarkier on Twitter than I am on air, obviously. I just speak hard truths, people. I'm sorry. Hard truths. That's what you get from me, and some snarkiness too. Obviously, though, I do appreciate everyone that does follow me. And I always love, you know, I always love having the hockey conversation. So never be afraid to hit me up on Twitter. I might not respond right away, but I always generally get back to anyone who messages me, as long as you're not just like giving me incoherent nonsense and lots of capital letters, and then I might
All
Let it
right,
go.
I'll try and not send any more drunk tweets, Ian.
All right,
My
all
bad.
But other than that, go guys. Thank you for tuning in again. You know, little podcast, hockey podcast in June, and we hope to get you guys a new podcast sometime after free agency to kind of just see where we are and see where we are in comparison to the rest of the division and beyond. Aside from that, though, guys, thanks again, and we are out later.